Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the Box Hard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the Box Hard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 199 of the Box Hard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by the heavyweight contender, very good friend of mine, Mr. Michael Hunter. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I love being on Box Hard.
No, I really appreciate, Mike, you filling in today. Obviously my panel member couldn't be with me, so 2 back-to-back weeks now we've had heavyweights take his place, and I just want to thank you for taking part in this week's show. You're going to be with me for the duration, so thanks in advance.
Yeah, no problem. I hope I can do just as good as your partner, and let's get this thing started.
Yes, very well said, Mike. Let's get underway. Let's start with a review part of the show. We're going to start here at the Exhibition Centre in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom, a card that happened here last Friday. A couple fights to mention on the undercard. I want to start really here with Olympian Kes Ashfaq. He picked up his 7th pro win, now 7-0. It was a points win over 8 rounds against Sean Davis, now 14-4. Friend of the show, Robbie Davies Jr. He picked up his 19th win inside 20 fights, a 3rd round TKO against Michael Dufek, who's now 25-22 with 2 draws. Robbie Davies. Obviously, there's a lot of bad blood seeming to brew now between him and Lewis Ritson, who also fought on the card. And Robbie Davies is a real chilled, laid-back kind of guy. He's been on the show a handful of times. Real nice guy. You can't not like him. And to see him completely lose his cool and start swearing down the camera on live TV was quite shocking, actually. He seems like he really does have some bad blood with Lewis Ritson. It'll be a great fight should that happen. But Robbie Davies Jr., he's been world ranked for quite a while now. I think he's probably looking at bigger fights and stuff. But very interesting fight should he look domestically. That's a great fight there. Also on the bill, we got to see Sean McGoldrick, very good amateur. He was searching for his 10th win. He was 9-0. And he took on Thomas Asomba. Very tough guy. Thomas Asomba actually boxed on your undercard, Mike, when you took on Bakole. He was on that. Very tough little guy. He actually pulled off the upset. He upset Sean McGoldrick here. He managed to pull out a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. Quite a close-ish fight, but very good win for Asomba. His record's only 9-5, but much better than what you'd think looking at that record. Also on the bill, Jack Cullen, 17 wins now with 1 loss. He took on John Harding Jr. I don't think John Harding Jr. actually had too much notice for the fight. I think he only had perhaps a week or maybe 2 weeks. It was a bit of a shame because he lost his undefeated streak, his undefeated record. He's lost his he's now 7-1 with 1 draw. He was down in the 5th round and he got TKO'd in the 8th round of a scheduled 10. It was a fight there for the English middleweight title. John Harding Jr. walked out to the ring with Dillian Whyte. I know that those guys trained together. A lot of people very surprised to see Dillian Whyte in the spotlight a little bit there on the ring walk, jumping around after what's been going on with him lately. Also on the bill, Lewis Ritson. He picked up the TKO in round 3. He's now 19-1. It was for the WBA Intercontinental Super Lightweight title. His opponent, Marek Dzierżewski. I think I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't think he had too much notice. 14-2 going in, now 14-3. He was down prior to that stoppage in the 3rd round. And finally, Matchroom's new signing, Martin Bakole himself. He returned to the ring here. Obviously, he's had that 1 fight since losing to you, Mike. And here he took on Italo Pereira, a guy with a record of 11-4 with 2 draws going in. It was a knockout in the very first round there for Martin Bakole. I don't know if you've seen any of it, Mike, but there's a reason. There's seemingly a reason why he didn't seem himself when he boxed you. It seems like he's changed his mind a little bit, and that wasn't Martin Bakole you beat that night. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, well, congratulations to him, and hopefully he continues to win, and maybe we can get a rematch going on.
Ooh, maybe. And finally, topping the bill, Anthony Fowler, former Olympian, 9-1 going in, now 10-1. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Brian Rose, former world title challenger, now 31-6 with one draw. It was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Middleweight title. Fowler was actually cut above his right eye in the 9th round. Like I say, it was a 10-round unanimous decision for Fowler. But I tell you what, I expected Fowler to get Brian Rose out of there within about 2 or 3 rounds. And I looked really bad because I was telling everyone, yep, this is going to be an early knockout. It's going to be an early knockout. And I couldn't believe it went the distance. And more than that, I couldn't believe that Brian Rose's nose held up. I couldn't believe that Brian Rose was able to win multiple rounds. And it was actually a pretty close-ish fight. Fowler seemed to take over a little bit in the later stages. But it was a very, very close fight going to the mid kind of point and even a little bit past that. So, yeah, no disgrace there from Brian Rose. He really did show up. And, you know, perhaps he's not done, which is shocking, really, because I don't think he'd beaten a guy with a winning record for a couple years or something like that. So I thought he was absolutely done. Or is Fowler just not as good as what we perhaps thought he was? You know, him and Fitzgerald was a great fight. Let's not say it wasn't. It was a great, great fight. So yeah, perhaps he's not as good as what we thought, or perhaps Brian Rose has got a little bit more left in the tank than what we thought. Hard to tell, but a good fight and very competitive, a bit too competitive, really, for my liking. And, you know, seeing that, it's hard to think that Anthony Fowler will go on to become a world champion, but it is very, very early. We need to bear that in mind. And, you know, all the best to both men. They're both friends of the show, so obviously only one could win and one could lose, but it is what it is. Best of luck to both men going forward, for sure. Moving out now, though, to the marquee in Falls Park, Belfast, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom. Trying to kind of whiz through this pretty quickly. Few interesting fights on the bill. Firstly, a very good prospect, Dennis McCann. He's been knocking everyone out. I mean, it was only his 3rd fight. It was a 6-rounder. I think he took about 30 seconds to get rid of Georgi Andonov, a journeyman, 5-15, now 5-16. But Dennis McCann really, really impressing, getting rid of his opponents in quick fashion. Also on the bill, Olympic bronze medalist Paddy Barnes picked up a win, now 6-2. Obviously, it's no secret he's had a very rocky professional career. He got in there against Joel Sanchez, who's now 4-7 with one draw. It ended up being a points win over 6 rounds there. Also on the bill, we got to see Michael Conlan. He topped it. He picked up a win, 12th round TKO. Sorry, not a 12th round. He's 12-0 now. It was a 9th round TKO of a scheduled 10. It was for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Featherweight title and also for the WBO Intercontinental Featherweight title. In the other corner, Diego Ruiz. I think he had a little bit of notice, but I don't think he got a full camp in. Obviously, they were trying to get the rematch. You know, from the Olympics where Conlan lost to Nicotine. They couldn't get him to sign for that fight. I don't think he fancied it. So in stepped Diego Ruiz, tough, brave guy, 21-2, decent record going in, but yeah, he wasn't really good enough for Michael Conlan. But a lot of people weren't too impressed with Michael Conlan. This one, by the way, Mike, was on ESPN Plus. I don't know if you saw it at all. If you didn't see it, then you don't really have to say much. Did you catch any of it at all, Michael Conlan?
No, I don't think I did.
No problem. No problem. Also on that card, Chris Jenkins got his first defence of his British welterweight title against Paddy Gallagher. Chris Jenkins, like I say, coming off that great win. He really boxed fantastic at the Royal Albert Hall, I believe it was, when he dethroned Johnny Garton. It was also for the vacant Commonwealth title. Paddy Gallagher 16-5 going in. Chris Jenkins 21-3 with 2 draws. It ended up being a technical decision after 9 rounds. It was a bad cut over Jenkins' left eye, and he was also actually down in the 6th round. Very, very close fight. I think all 3 judges had it exactly the same, 86-85. So very, very lucky was Jenkins to hold on to his title. It was a kind of worrying moment. Everyone in the ring, when you looked at them, they were all unsure. Everyone was a bit nervy, but the champion kept his British title there. But the interesting fight on the bill, and this was a real shock for me here, Luke Keeler, a guy, I've said it many times, very, very talented fighter. Reminds me a lot like Joe Calzaghe, just similar styles and stuff like that. he was really impressive here. I mean, I didn't give him a prayer in hell because he took on Luis Arias, a guy that had only lost to Daniel Jacobs. And when he took on Daniel Jacobs, I don't even think he touched the canvas, but he was on the deck in the very first round, Arias, and he was also on the deck in the 9th round. Keeler did have a point deducted for hitting behind or hitting the back of Luis Arias' head, and also Arias had a point off for hitting on the break in the 8th round, so it was quite a scrappy kind of fight. But it ended up being a 10-round points win there for Luke Keeler. The referee judged the fight. He's now 17-2 with 1 draw, and Luis Arias, it's been a real bad run for him. I remember he was undefeated for quite a long time, and now he's had 3 fights without a win. Obviously, the loss to Jacobs, the draw with Gabe Rosado, and now a loss here on the road over here in Northern Ireland. So bad times really for Luis Arias. A friend of the show, I really like him, but I just thought that Luke Keeler boxed amazing, to be honest. I mean, there's so much to like about him. I mean, fantastic punch picking we saw. His footwork was excellent. His movement, his elusiveness was great. His power was surprisingly quite apparent, if you like. The speed, the accuracy. He showed a great chin. He took some great shots off Arias, and he showed a good engine, Luke Keeler, because Arias was absolutely spent at the kind of end stages of that fight. Once again, Mike, I've got no idea if you know too much about Arias, but I'm guessing he was at the in and around the Mayweather gym for quite a while. I'm guessing you've probably brushed shoulders with him at some point.
Yeah, actually, that's a good friend of mine. I did watch that fight, and what's the guy's name? Keeler?
Yeah, Luke Keeler.
Yeah, he did his job. You know, he looked well, and like you said, he had a good punch selection. He even fought pretty good he was on the ropes, but he picked his right punches, and you know, it was like you said, it was a scrappy fight. You know, it was a lot of elbows and, you know, kind of rough. But he bit down and did exactly what he was supposed to do. So I think it was more about his concentration more than anything that got him that win with Luis.
Yeah, very well said. Moving out now to the Bobby Miller Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, USA. Julius Indongo, former unified 140 world champion. He returned to the ring here. I think it's the first fight back since he got starched in 2 rounds by Regis Prograis. Indongo 23-2 now. He returned with a 2nd round knockout over Carltavius Jones Johnson. I really like that first name, Carltavius. Never seen it before, but he's now 4-2. So yeah, Indongo, you know, some people writing him off. He's only lost to Crawford and Regis Prograis. I mean, he's obviously got bundles of talent. A very tall guy for the weight, southpaw, trickster, and yeah, he's certainly not done. Don't forget about him, even though he's out of all the rankings because he hasn't boxed, I think, for about 1.5 years since that Regis Prograis loss. Moving out now though to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. I'm going to start over here with the undercard. It's the final bill to mention as well, but let's go through it here. I'm going to throw it over to you actually, Mike. Curtis Stevens with a shock upset loss, now 30-7, a 3rd round TKO against Wow Amatoso, a guy I hadn't heard of, if I'm being honest. He's now 28-4. Stevens was down in the 1st, 2nd, and finally in the 3rd round. Huge upset, like I say.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to watch the whole fight, but I did catch the end of it. I actually know the other guy. His name is Lucky. They call him Lucky Boy, and he works out at Wildcard Gym. He's from that Freddie Roach background, and he's actually a very similar fighter to Curtis Stevens. You know, as far as, you know, kind of gritty, and you know, they throw a lot of hard punches. You know, they have bad intentions. And I think it was a tough little fight in the beginning. I've seen some highlights. And, you know, Curtis Stevens, he's getting older now. And, he's been hit he's been down a few times in a lot of his fights. So, you know, it might be a time to just start thinking about, you know, cutting it loose.
Yeah, like I say, his 7th loss there. And talking of him being knocked down, I'll never forget that highlight reel knocked down for Golovkin when his eyes rolled back and he was like, "Whoa! I just got hit by a truck." I'll never forget that. Also on the
Me
bill,
neither.
also on the bill, Adam Kalnacki, now 20-0. He managed to score a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Chris Arreola. I said it on last week's show. I thought that this fight would probably end within a few rounds. I certainly thought that Arreola was going to show up and have a good go. He usually tries to pour it all in the early rounds, but it was shocking to see that he actually went 12 rounds and he didn't really slow down. I think Arreola, he threw 1,125 punches, which actually breaks the record for the most punches thrown by a heavyweight in CompuBox's 34-year history. So shocking there from Arreola, but even better from Kalnacki, who obviously deserved to get the win, and keeps getting these wins, Mike. Now,
yeah, he's determined. And you can tell, by the way he fights. He keeps coming and he keeps throwing punches, whether he gets hit or he takes some good shots and he gives them back. That was an amazing fight to see those guys, because I didn't think it was going to go past the fourth round myself. And they just, they kept going and going and going. Even when you could tell they were tired, but, the punches kept coming. And it was like they were fighting. It was like a mirror image of fighting themselves. So, I think they both enjoyed actually and were very comfortable fighting that type of style. It was just like tailor-made. But none of them really, I feel like none of them really separated and got enough space to actually hurt one another. They were kind of very close to each other, and I got to tip my hat off to Kalnacki, and he was actually the bigger guy by like 40 pounds that night, and he was also the more active guy. It was kind of like a little rat race, and Arreola was just slightly behind, in pretty much every round I kind of gave Kalnacki just the edge slightly. So, even though on the scorecards he probably won big, but the fight, looking at the fight was much closer than what the scorecards would have given.
Yeah, good assessment. I mean, like I say, quite impressed with Arreola to still be there in the 12th round. He did say before the fight if he can't beat Kalnacki, then he should give up boxing. I do want to ask you what you think he should do going forward, Mike. But firstly, I just want to say, Kalnacki, when we actually look at it a little bit deeper, he's a real player now at heavyweight. I mean, look at the run of opponents he's had, starting with Artur Szpilka when he stopped him in 4 rounds. That was a huge statement. I thought Szpilka would beat Kalnacki, so, he beat him there. Then he took on Iago Kiladze, a guy that you've boxed, Mike. He got the win over him, over Kiladze, 6-round knockout. Then, of course, the Charles Martin fight, a great fight, close fight, people forget, but a good name again. And then, of course, he got Gerald Washington out of there within 2 rounds. And now Chris Arreola, a fight which I thought would be a lot more one-sided. I thought that Kalnacki would get him out there early, but he's managed to put on a fantastic display of boxing. Well, not so much skill-wise, but a complete war. So he's got some serious names now back to back. Credit to him. But yeah, Arreola, should he carry on, or is that enough for him? What do you think?
Yeah, that's kind of a hard thing to do when you all is fighting, and you've made such a great career out of doing what you love. It's very hard to leave the sport like that. And but he seemed to have a good head on his shoulders, and said he had to go to his family and talk. Yeah, it might be time to hang it up. He might have one more big fight in him. Because he didn't buckle. He wasn't never hurt in the fight, so he's still a live dog. I'm pretty sure that there's some guys that he could give a lot more trouble to, and he probably, depending on what he wants to do with his career, he I guess he should talk to his team and and go from there. It's kind of hard to tell a man what they should and should not do, especially like I said when they were so successful in the sport that they love.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main event, Marcus Brown, obviously defending his interim WBA World Light Heavyweight title. Also, the WBC Silver title was at stake. Yeah, I mean, Brown was down in the 4th round. He was down twice in the 7th round, and they had a head clash in the 8th round, and it went straight to the cards. A technical decision after 8 rounds. Jean Pascal managed to get the win. Now 34 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. Marcus Brown loses his O. You know, it's crazy, these cuts that are happening. Obviously, in Brown's last fight, we saw it against Badou Jack when Badou got one of the most grotesque cuts I've ever seen in boxing. And now, straight after that, the very next fight, Marcus Brown gets a bad cut himself. So we don't like to really see that in the sport, but it happens from time to time. And it's a big upset here because, again, Jean Pascal, I think he actually retired for about 6 months and then came back. And again, I just didn't think he'd be able to win this fight. I thought he'd probably be a little bit too small, a little bit too old, a little bit too shot worn. I felt like Marcus Brown's activity, size, athleticism, power would just overrule anything really that Jean Pascal brought. But yeah, he's got that power, Pascal, and it seemed to get him through. Mike, what did you think of it?
I think that was a perfect assessment. I think you're not the only person that thought that, Marcus was the more superior, more athletic, younger, hungrier fighter at the time. But, it's hard to beat, that wisdom, and that experience. You could tell that Marcus was, he even in the fight rounds that he got knocked down in, he seemed to be in control. He was winning the fight. It was just those 3 big knockdowns that played a big factor, and then the headbutt. I would have liked to see the whole fight play out, but it was unfortunate that the headbutt happened and they had to go to the scorecards. But Pascal, very experienced. He's a live dog. And he's always gave anybody that he's been in the ring with some trouble. So Marcus is an Olympic teammate of mine. So I hope they do that rematch. I would love to see it again. I think the fans wouldn't be mad at watching that fight again as well because, there was a lot of exciting moments in there. And obviously for the knockdowns. And, Marcus, he's a true champion. He got up in those rounds. To me, I feel like he was getting up a little too fast because, he got knocked down and he jumped right up. He didn't even let the ref really give him a count. He kind of stumbled a little bit. But it would be very interesting to see the fight, the rematch.
Absolutely, and that is about everything there for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do, of course, is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated heavyweight contender. It is, of course, Mr. Adam Kownacki. Adam, welcome back on the show.
Thank you for having me on.
It's always a pleasure, Adam. It truly is. So we last spoke back in January. It was just after the Gerald Washington fight. But yeah, let's talk about the recent win that you gathered on Saturday night over Chris Arreola. A points win after 12 hard-fought rounds. Talk us through the fight, Adam, because we weren't lucky enough to have it televised over here in the UK, unfortunately.
Well, that stinks. But yeah, it was a tough fight. Arreola wasn't, I think, in great shape. He came to fight, so he was very motivated because he said if he lost that fight, he would retire. But after the performance like that, I don't know if he wants to retire. We gave a great fight, and he still has a lot of fight left in him.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned his statement there. Obviously, it's not for us to make the decision, but do you think he should carry on?
He had a tough camp, and I think I don't know if he still wants to train so hard. I mean, I know he gave everything he had in training camp and then in the fight. So it's his decision. And but he was more than game. I think he'll be a lot of he could still beat a lot of heavyweights out there today.
Yeah, for sure. And like I say, his last fight kind of proved that to us. Yeah, so you're now part of the history, I suppose. The fight, there was so many punches thrown. Obviously, the most punches ever in heavyweight history in a fight. Arreola managed to throw more shots than you, though, Adam, which I'm not sure has ever happened before. Were you surprised by how active he was on Saturday night? Obviously, not everything landed, though.
Oh yeah, so like I said, he was really game. He meant every word when he said if he loses, he's gonna retire. And I guess he didn't want to retire, because he gave me a great fight. I mean, but I was just as determined to get the win and prove that I'm a top 10 heavyweight.
And of course, not many people managed to go the distance with you. I think the general feeling going into the fight was that you'd probably take Arreola out within the first half of the fight. Obviously, it was a very motivated Arreola, which we don't always get, to be fair. Were you disappointed, though, Adam, in any way that you didn't get the stoppage, or are you just happy for the win and the history it's made?
I think it was a great fight, so I'm just happy, to be a part of such a great fight. I mean, I grew up watching Chris Arreola fight, so being able to go to war with him and give probably, in many eyes, some people said it was the fight of the year. So definitely excited about that, and just continue, now I just continue to get better,
That's interesting that you said that, because I spoke to a heavyweight on last week's podcast, and he actually said he sees you as almost like a young Chris Arreola. So it's interesting to hear you say that you've been watching him for a while. Now, since we last spoke, Adam, the majority of the heavyweight world titles have changed hands. Andy Ruiz Jr. upset the odds against AJ. Firstly, I just wanted to get your reaction to that and your thoughts on the rematch. Who do you think wins it second time round?
We have to see, Ruiz pulled a huge upset win against him, and it's the heavyweight division, so one punch changes everything. And you can never underestimate nobody or take somebody out, because a little extra motivation could take you a long way. So I can't wait to see that fight, as a boxing fan.
And of course, it was good to see you and Deontay sat down after your fight. You were next to Lennox Lewis as well, basically discussing what it would be like if you and Deontay were to get it on. We don't get to see that a lot, which was pretty cool to kind of see that. Is that the fight that you're chasing the most? Is that the fight you want above all of the rest?
Yeah, I think so. I think just with he's the longest regaining champion right now. So I think that's the fight I want.
And I said it a few moments ago on the podcast to heavyweight Michael Hunter. I said Adam is really putting together some big wins in a row now. I mean, Artur Szpilka, Kiladze, Charles Martin, Gerald Washington, and now Chris Arreola. It's a very, very impressive and consistent run of wins there, Adam. I don't think anyone can overlook you now. I think you've brought fantastic excitement time and time again in a row.
Yeah, for sure. I'm fighting the top names out there, apart from the champions. I don't see some of these guys that fought for a title. They didn't have this kind of resume that I have. So I think the title shot is right around the corner. I just gotta continue training hard and keep stacking on these wins.
Yeah, for sure. And you're certainly earning it in my eyes, at least. When are you looking to box next? I know it's obviously very early at the minute.
Yeah, probably early January. Late February. Late January, early February.
Okay. And Adam, what will happen now? How long do you spend out of the gym following this win, or are you right back in already? What's the plan?
I'm a little sore, so a couple of weeks off. Definitely, spend some time with my wife, who's due August 29th. So take some time off, but I definitely will be going back in the gym soon, just to make sure I don't let myself go too much.
Excellent, man. And obviously, again, it's very early, but have you got any kind of names that you'd like to fight in the meantime before this Wilder fight perhaps comes around?
No, still no mention of nobody. Right now, we're just enjoying the win and doing a lot of interviews. I think my stock and my brand really got big over this last fight, especially with how exciting this fight was. So just gotta continue doing that, and we'll see soon, though. The heavyweight division is very high right now, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And finally, Adam, have you got any closing words at all just for our listeners? I just want to give you a chance to send out a final message before we let you go, if you have one.
Yeah, continue watching me. As you watched this Saturday, I'm very exciting, and I'm gonna go to be the first Polish-born heavyweight champion of the world.
Very well said, my friend. Adam, listen, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. Congratulations once again on the win. I'm really happy that you're going to be a father, and we'll speak again soon, my friend.
Thank you. Shout out to all my fans in the UK.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Two things really to mention. Firstly, Frank Warren has announced, well, both things are actually to do with Frank Warren. Firstly, though, Frank Warren has announced a card that will take place at the Royal Albert Hall on Friday, September 27th. That one will be shown live on BT Sport. We'll get to see Daniel Dubois coming off that brilliant win against Nathan Gorman. He takes on Ebenezer Tete. This one's for the Commonwealth Crown. Ebenezer Tete, a heavyweight fighter from Ghana, 19-0, 16 by knockout. A lot of people not too pleased really with this opponent because, I mean, I'm being honest, I'd never heard of him. I'm sure you probably haven't either, Mike. It's, you know, it is what it is. He's trying to get another belt. Fair play to him. Also on that card, we'll get to see Nicola Adams defend her WBO flyweight world title. Obviously, she's been kind of like elevated to full WBO champion without really having a fight. But there's actually a fight that's happening for the IBF world title, and it's between two women. I think that fight's happening on August 16th, and I believe the winner of that will take on Nicola just 5 weeks later, which doesn't sound great preparation, but it is what it is. I think if the fight can't be made, then they've already got an opponent to step in and face Nicola, but it will be a defense of her WBO flyweight world title. Obviously, Nicola Adams, a fantastic amateur, I think she was double Olympic gold medalist actually. Billy Joe Saunders and Frank Warren have come to terms and agreed terms really to split, which is quite shocking because obviously Frank Warren has been very loyal to Billy Joe over the years. Billy Joe, vice versa, been very, very loyal to Frank Warren, almost had an unbreakable bond, it would appear. And, things obviously change over time, and perhaps, I'm guessing they have changed. But Billy Joe Saunders, I mean, Frank always stuck by him. I mean, he is, even to this day, or he was, because they're now not together anymore, but he was the biggest thing that Frank had going on. I know that Frank's now kind of half involved with Tyson Fury. He's got kind of one side of him and Bob Arum's got the other side, but he actually kind of grew with Billy Joe. He took him from like area level to English level, I think, to British level, to Commonwealth, to European, all the way up to world. So he's done everything with him for his whole career, so it's quite a shock really to see him part ways. It's good that there's no bad blood between them. It's an amicable split, and it's looking like he's going to probably end up signing with Matchroom, and I think that is probably what he's going to do, because that's, there's only one other big promoter in the UK. You wouldn't have thought he's going to go somewhere else and have to emigrate or whatever. But if he goes with Eddie, then the door opens for a Callum Smith fight at super middleweight. The door opens perhaps for a Canelo fight, because they'd both be on the zone. The Andrade fight can happen without the clashes between Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. The fight couldn't happen before. Daniel Jacobs, another guy. There's many big fights, what I'm saying there, for Billy Joe if he does put pen to paper with Matchroom. So I can see him doing that probably in the next week or so. But yeah, that's it for the news. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here at the Marina Frappa Resort in Rogoznica, Croatia. Heavyweight Mark Damori, 36-2 with 2 draws, friend of the show. He's an 8-rounder, no opponent just yet. Mark Damori likes to have a fight or two in Croatia. He likes to knock people over in Croatia. Decent fighter, Mark Damori. I remember being there ringside, though, when David Haye almost decapitated him in his comeback fight after all that time off. And Mark Damori, I've never told this story on the podcast, Mark Damori's girlfriend, very pretty lady, it could even be his wife, she is a bodybuilder. So when he was knocked out unconscious, they were over him with the oxygen mask and all that stuff. She obviously wanted to get by his side, so she was just barging and throwing people out the way, and no one's going to mess with her because she's got bigger arms, and she's got big arms, believe me, like, you're not going to mess with her. So not even the security could sort her out. She was throwing people out the way. Don't mess with Mark Damori or his lady for that matter. But moving out now to Mexico at the Salon Diamante Premier, we've got Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., 50 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. It is a fight here against Evert Bravo, 25-10 with 1 draw. Evert Bravo's a guy that's been in there with a few fringe guys and lost to all of them, really. So you'd expect if Chavez Jr. has anything left, it's been a long time since he's boxed, but if he has anything left, he should beat Bravo. But again, another wild card, really, Chavez Jr. I actually remember almost getting him on the show. He very rarely does interviews in English, and we were going to do an interview, and he was in a restaurant, and we was about 2 minutes into the interview, and he was in a restaurant in Mexico, and I could barely hear him because everyone's slamming plates down, knives and forks were going everywhere, tables were flying, and basically I couldn't hear him. So I said, I can't really hear you, Julio. And he went, all right, I'll call you back after. And we never actually managed to speak again. So an interview that would have been quite something never even turned out to be anything. But it lives in my memory. Also on that undercard, Jose Uzcategui. That's the guy, of course, that we saw in there with the, which Durrell brother? I think it was Andre Durrell. And then James DeGale vacated his belt rather than face Uzcategui. And then, of course, Caleb Plant got in there as the underdog and made him look a bit silly. Brilliant win there. Uzcategui, though, 28-3. No opponent just yet there in Mexico. Moving out now, though, to the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. Now, it was supposed to be topped by Carl Frampton, 26-2. He's no longer on the bill. Firstly, he was supposed to be taking on, who was it? Was it Emmanuel Dominguez? I think it was Emmanuel Dominguez. Obviously, British fight fans knew Dominguez because he got knocked out in 3 rounds earlier this year in March by Jordan Gill, who has since lost his fight to a guy that we hadn't heard of. So everyone thought that Jordan Gill was a little bit padded, and this guy got blitzed by Jordan Gill. So we're seeing, or we thought we would be seeing, Frampton take him on. We thought it would be one-sided, all the rest of it. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened with Dominguez, because on BoxRec it wasn't listed. People were saying the fight's off and stuff like that, but then apparently the fight was back on, and it was all a bit confusing. But then, earlier today, because we are recording this show on a Monday, or on Monday of fight week, earlier today, Carl Frampton was sitting in the hotel lobby in Philadelphia. Someone bumped into a concrete ornament and it fell and smashed into his hand, and now his left hand is fractured, I believe, in 2 places. So the fight's off. Complete bizarre. But it does happen in boxing. Boxing is bizarre. Not quite sure if the card is still going ahead, but if it is, then the main event, I'm guessing, probably elevated up from chief support, because the card wasn't really a strong card in my opinion. But Jason Sosa, former world champion, 22-3 with 4 draws. He's in there in a 10-rounder against Haskell Rhodes, who's 27-3 with 1 draw. So like I say, if the card does go ahead, then that'll be the bill topper. And finally, this one is happening in Texas at the Grand Prairie. We've got over here Hector Tanahara, still undefeated, 17-0, friend of the show. He's in a 10-rounder against Ezekiel Avilés, who is 16-3 with 3 draws. Joshua Franco, the professor, 15-1 with 1 draw. He fights for the WBA International Bantamweight title and the NABF Bantamweight title. It's actually a trilogy. It's the 3rd fight here against Oscar Negrete, 18-2 with 1 draw. In the first fight, the pair fought to a draw, and then in the second fight, Josh Franco won on points. And here's the 3rd fight. So Josh Franco, a very good young prospect. And topping the bill, talking of great young prospects, possibly and arguably the best prospect in world boxing for me, Virgil Ortiz Jr., 13-0, all 13 by knockout. I remember in his last fight, I think it was, he blitzed Mauricio Herrera, who I think actually deserved to beat Danny Garcia once upon a time on a card in Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, in the other corner against Virgil Ortiz Jr., Antonio Orozco, 28-1. His only one loss came to Jose Ramirez, who obviously got a brilliant win the other week against Maurice Hooker. So if my fantastic prospect Virgil Ortiz Jr. can stop Orozco and do something that the champion Jose Ramirez couldn't, because he went the full 12 with him. I think he won pretty much every round, but if Ortiz Jr. can get him out of there, then that's a mega statement, and it just beats the drum once again that Virgil Ortiz is almost a world level fighter already. He's just been blitzing everyone. I've thrown through everything there, really, Mike. Anything you want to add to any of these fights that I've flown through just there?
No, there was a lot of them kind of I didn't know, and some of those guys I wasn't really aware of them fighting.
No, that's no problem. Right, that is everything then. We've done part one. We brought you the review part. We did the news part. Michael gave his assessment on the card from last week with Brown and Arreola and all the rest of those guys there. That's the preview part just done. So finally, before we wrap up the show, I'm going to bring in our second guest in a moment. But just before that, it's now time to say goodbye to Michael Hunter. Like I say, Mike, I really appreciate you helping out with this week's show. You know this anyway, but just for the listeners, you are obviously a fantastic friend of mine, and I really just appreciate you for doing this. You're on the intro every week anyway, so people do get to hear your voice every single week, even when you're not here. But it's brilliant to have you say a few more words on this week's show, and hopefully we can do it again at some point in the future. Thank you.
And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad I could fill in anytime you have any more space. I would love to do my part. So thank you so much.
Excellent stuff. Okay, like I say, just before we wrap up part two, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBC super middleweight world champion. It is, of course, the undefeated Mr. David Benavidez. David, welcome back on the show.
Thank you for having me, sir, and it's a pleasure to be on here. I just want to thank you guys for all the support and, inviting me to do this interview.
No problem at all. It's great to have you back, David. We actually last spoke in February of last year, so it's been quite a while. At the time, you'd just come off the win over Ronald Gavriel in the rematch. Since then, you've just boxed the one time. Obviously, it was against Jay Leon Love back in March of this year. You destroyed Jay Leon Love, to be honest. Just give us a quick few words on that win, if you don't mind, David. And what does that win, of course, do for your career at this stage?
It was just a fight to get back where I was supposed to be at. So I trained very hard for that fight. Obviously I was a champion in recess, so I just wanted to show everybody that I was back. It was under a big venue that had 50,000 people. It was under a pay-per-view card, so it was a big opportunity for me. So I just went in. Had to do, what I mean, and worked and got a spectacular knockout.
And moving on to the next one, you're set to box Anthony Dirrell, the new WBC world champion, on the Spence vs. Porter undercard in LA on September 28th. Obviously, this is your chance to win back the belt that you never lost in the ring. What do you know about Anthony, David?
Anthony Dirrell is a great fighter. I've been watching him for a while. Since I think he's been pro for a long time. So I remember watching him when I was like 13 years old. Him and his brother Andre. So they're tough, rugged veterans. They have a lot of experience in the ring, and they have a lot of tricks. Yes, I'm working very hard. I'm very motivated to get my belt back. So I'm training as hard as I can. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna get my belt back.
And how does that fight play out? I mean, how do you see it unfolding? Obviously, you like to knock people the hell out, and he's only got that one loss. It was obviously by decision, a majority decision loss to Badou Jack, a very good fighter.
Yeah, my motto is, if I give the fans a great fight, I always want to give the fans what they want to see, and that's knockouts. So I always train for knockouts. I push my body to the limit every day. I work as hard as I can, so I could exceed that, and I could, give the fans what they want to see. It doesn't matter who it is, if it's a great fighter, bad fighter, I'm always going to go in there and try to get the knockout. It doesn't mean I'm just going to go in there, not give the guy no respect. I'm just going to work as much as I can until I get the knockout. And I feel like Anthony Dirrell, he's a great fighter, but I see a lot of holes in his game, and I see a lot of things I can take advantage of. Well, ultimately, I can knock him out. But if the knockout doesn't come, you can't really knock everybody out. But if the knockout doesn't come, it's going to be an amazing fight. So it's going to be a win for the fans either way, because it's going to be an amazing fight.
Do you said something there that made me want to ask you this. You said there that you don't really go into fights with no respect for your opponent and trying to take their head off kind of thing. Is that something that changed in between the two Gavriel fights? Because obviously the first one, it seemed like you didn't respect him too much. You went in there, there was a lot of people saying it was a close fight. I don't think it was. And then obviously the second one, you boxed beautifully, and it was as wide as it could have been.
Yeah, because at this level, toe-to-toe is not always going to get the knockouts. The thing that's going to get the knockouts is working the smartest and setting traps and making these fighters fall into the traps. You know, so there always has to be a game plan. You know, a game plan. You go in there with the game plan and you do the game plan right, and then the job is going to come out perfectly. You know, so that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm trying to outsmart these fighters. You know, because these fighters, a lot of them are older than me, so they're not expecting a young fighter to outsmart them. And not only can I outsmart them, I could outpower them. You know, I could outpunch them, and there's a lot of things I could do that you guys still haven't seen. You know, so I have a lot of tricks in my arsenal. You know, I've been working really hard. So I'm just going in there. I'm going to break them down mentally and physically.
And do you believe that Anthony Dirrell will be the best fighter that you've boxed as a pro?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, I feel like this is a better way to win for me to win the title, because now I'm going in there and I'm taking it away from the champion. You know, I'm not just winning a vacated belt. I'm going in there and I'm beating the champion. So this is another big opportunity for me. This is how I want to win my title again. And
BoxRec is one of the most important websites in boxing, but their rankings are probably the worst in the world. You're ranked as the 18th best super middleweight in the world. Obviously, no one thinks that you're actually placed number 18. In my opinion, you and Callum Smith are probably 1 and 2. Have you seen their bad rankings, David? It's a bit annoying at times.
No, I mean, I didn't expect me to be number 18, but you know, the people know as, you know, the rankings where I'm at. You know, I'm amongst the best of the super middleweights. You know, if I'm not top 5, then I don't know what they've been seeing lately. But you know, I've been in there. I've put the work in. You know, I've never lost. I've won a world title. Been the youngest super middleweight world title holder in history. So, you know, I feel like I deserve to be at least 10. I mean, I don't know about 18, but, you know,
no, at
I'm
least
getting
3. At least 3, man. Not even 10.
At least. But, you know, I'm getting these opportunities, and I'm you know, I'm working as hard as I can, because those are the type of fights the fighters I want to fight. You know, the Anthony Dirrells, the Callum Smiths, you know, hope maybe Canelo Alvarez in the future. There's just a lot of great fights to be made, and I'm very blessed to be in this position right now.
And of course, if you get the win September 28th and become an undefeated 2-time super middleweight world champion, what do you plan to do next? Do you plan to, you know, unify? What's the plan? Have you thought that far just yet?
Yeah, you know, obviously I want to unify. I only want to unify the titles. You know, there's Caleb Plant is my promotion company too, with PBC and Al Heyman. Caleb Plant. Obviously there's Callum Smith. So I want to fight the best fighters, and that's the bottom line. So, you know, after I'm going to take care of this fight, and then I'm going to go back into the drawing board, talk to my promoters, talk to my managers, and then we'll see what's the biggest fight we can make. You know, obviously that's their job to figure all that out, but I really do want to fight the best, because I want to prove to myself and to my people and to the fans of boxing that I'm the best super middleweight in the world.
And again, should you win that and you regain the title, it really sets up some fantastic fights if these unifications can be made, because off the top of my head, I can't think of another weight class where all 4 of the champions will all be undefeated. Obviously, you mentioned there Caleb Plant, you mentioned there Callum Smith, obviously yourself, should you regain the belt, and then the guy that you didn't include, Billy Joe Saunders. Is that a fight that interests you?
Yeah, I forgot that. I didn't realize. I forgot that Billy Joe Sanders just recently came up. Well, yeah, that right there, Billy Joe Sanders is one of the best fighters, you know, and to come out of England. You know, he's an amazing fighter, and you know, like I'm saying, like especially to have an opportunity to fight Billy Joe Sanders. There's all these amazing guys to fight, and you know, I want the best competition out there.
If you could have it your way, I'm guessing you'd probably fancy the Caleb Plant fight the most. If we put politics to the side and promotional companies to the side, which fight of those 3 guys there most kind of gets you excited?
You know, that would definitely be one of the top fights I want to get. You know, Caleb Plant. You know, and this is just like speaking as a dream, because I don't know if he's going to go up there. But if we could get a fight with Canelo, that would be a dream come true. But I don't know if he's going back up to 168, because he vacated that title, the interim WBA. So, you know, so it'd probably be Caleb Plant, maybe Callum Smith, and down the line, Billy Joe Sanders. Those will all be amazing fights to make happen.
They certainly would. And just finally, David, as I always do, I just want to really give you an opportunity, if you've got any kind of message that you want to send out to your UK fans. They don't always get to hear from you. It's great to have you back on the show. Any closing words for your UK supporters over here?
You know, I just want to thank all the UK supporters that have been supporting me. You know I don't have too much of them, but the ones that do support me, it means a lot to me. You know, just from another country. You know, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I would never thought I would have fans over there, and I'm just very blessed and very fortunate to have you guys as fans. You know, I really appreciate every single one of you, and thank you so much. And it's a blessing to have all of you as supporters.
Listen, David, it is always a pleasure speaking with you, my brother. Thank you so much for your time and best of luck for September 28th.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a nice night.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 199 of the Box Hard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Heavyweight contender Michael Hunter has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our two guests this week. Obviously, the heavyweight contender Adam Kownacki and the undefeated former WBC super middleweight world champion David Benavidez. A few pieces of news have broken whilst we've been recording the show. Devin Haney will now be boxing on September 13th in New York against Zour Abdullayev. Somebody's own must go there. That's a brilliant fight there. Also on that card, our very own Michael Hunter. He finally gets his date with Sergey Kuzmin. It's finally penciled in. Daniel Roman boxes Murajon Akhmadaliev, who is a 2016 Olympic bronze medalist. That card is really shaping up to be quite something special there in New York. Josh Warrington will defend his IBF world title at the First Direct Arena in Leeds against Sofiane Takouch, a French guy with quite a padded record. It's arguably the worst world title defence in recent years for a champion, but if anyone deserves a little soft touch for a while, it is Josh Warrington after some brilliant fights back to back. Also on that undercard, we'll get to see Zelfa Barrett take on Jordan McCrory. Obviously, McCrory boxed Archie Sharp a few weeks back. He would have then boxed Archie Sharp, Sam Bowen and Zelfa Barrett. It'd be interesting to see who he thinks is the best of the bunch. Also, Frank Warren has announced a card at the York Hall for September 14th. Sonny Edwards will box Hugo Guarneros, and also Brad Foster takes on Lucian Reed. That's a great fight there. Dex Spellman takes on Shakan Pitters, and most excitingly in my opinion, Zach Chelly boxes Cody Davies. So a wicked little small hall show there. The most expensive ticket is only £60, so there's no excuse to not be there. And finally, Sam Eggington will box Orlando Fiordigiglio in Italy. The Italian has a record of 31-2, but like most Italians, he's always warm because he's very padded. His two losses have been when he stepped up to European level, so let's all get behind Sam Eggington for this one. But that is about everything from me. Thank you so much for listening to this week's show. Tell a friend to leave us a review, and we'll be back next week for sure.